All right. Well, hello, and welcome everyone to our BG5 Live. And today we're going to take a look at the detail of change. You know, it's very interesting as we've been kind of going through the last few weeks. It just feels like there's a big change upon us, and it's very interesting to see how all of the traits that we've been looking at talk about this change. So we're going to be taking a look at the detail of change. And today is July 16th, 2019. This is episode 15. And let's check in with our crew. Let's check in with our team, our panel, see how everyone's doing today. So Lavina, hey, welcome.
Hey, Karen. Hey, everyone. So glad to be here. Welcome.
Yeah, great to have you here. And Natalie.
Yes, hey guys, very wonderful to be here, as it will be my last for a few weeks. I'm going on holiday, so I'm done.
Yes, Natalie's heading off on holiday, so
road trip through Europe.
Nice. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Chris, hey Chris.
Hi, it's great to be back this week. Yeah, I'm so excited. I know you're gonna have a great time, Natalie. We'll miss you, but I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and it's great to have you back, Chris. I know last week you weren't here, and the week before you were having some issues with the internet. So
yeah,
so
I told
now
my
you're
son
back.
he can't play video games while we're doing. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yes, yay! Well, great, and welcome to all of you that are here live in our BG5 room. Welcome to all of you on Facebook. And just as a reminder, you can now visit us or see us on YouTube as well as Vimeo. So like and subscribe and share. We're having a lot of fun doing this, and so thank you for tuning in. And again, this is our opportunity to kind of geek out on BG5 and really exploring the different traits that are part of our career design. And today, the trait that we're going to take a look at is trait 62, which is the trait of details. So it's the manifestation through details. And remember, when we're talking about any of the traits of communication and action, and remember, we've been in, sort of this fulfilling purpose through form. So when we're taking a look at this particular function, this is the throat. This is the one manifestation function. So this is about manifesting or manifestation through details. This is the preponderance of the small. This is caution, patience, and detail produce the excellence out of limitation. And this is what I found really fascinating and interesting as we think about this. This is the fixing of names is the foundation of the world, and for the sharing of human experience. So the picture that I have here is the periodic table of the elements. And, this is the preponderance of the small, taking a look at that minute detail that makes up our universe. And notice that each of these little elements are also named. And taking a look at what creates our experience. What creates our experience is the naming of all the details of things, whether it be the naming our own names, right? Our own personal name, whether it be, the naming of, the stuff here in my office, the desk. Everything we name then creates the experience and how we experience it. So, I was just, and this is part of communication and action. So it really is about, in a sense, communicating the detail, being able to name things, to organize things, to really understand the detail of things. So any thoughts or anything come to mind to Chris or Natalie or Lavina that you would like to shout out or say?
As I share all of these videos on Facebook into our separate groups, it's interesting how just even labeling the group, labeling the place, labeling the activity. I wrote study group, I wrote what we're doing, and we can't have communication without labels.
Yeah.
It just
interesting.
mind-boggling. We can't. Can you have a communication of words without labeling what you're talking about?
Right. Because each word carries its own meaning, right? Each word is its own detail in and of itself. And, you know, and it's for sharing the human experience. So how we share is by taking a look at putting all these details together, putting these details into words and being able to share and express them.
And if you think about, you know, looking at words, font, you know, the different languages, you know, we were just traveling and in the airport, it has all the different languages and all, you know, how, and the script that actually looks different. And even when we look at our design and we look at maybe even the symbols of the planets, like there's symbols, and each symbol also has an energy to it. So when we are looking at a word, we're not just grasping the meaning of the word that we have created as humans, we're also, there's an energy, a transmission through even the spelling of the word, or seeing it, you know, Om looks and feels energetically different when you see it written in English and when you see it in the Sanskrit form. And so it's really interesting to me too, and how we are really, we create constructs around us all the time. And when we really get to the minute detail and we energetically look at a word like believe that's on my wall, or some other word, it's like it has an energy to it as well that is subtle. Yeah. So that was what was popping for me when you were talking about that.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. How about for you, Natalie?
Yeah, so I know, Chris, you this is your trade.
Yeah, it is. It is a big one.
But it's interesting because I talk different language. I speak different languages. Of course, English is not my mother tongue, and I also speak Spanish. And sometimes I don't know the labeling in Spanish for something, and then I'll just describe it, kind of. So, Lavinia, you were saying, can you have a conversation without labeling? Yes, you can, but you're still describing the energy. Yeah. So, because I will go like, yeah, the thing that does, you know, the thing, and then you understand.
Yeah, and when you're describing the thing that does the thing, it's describing its function. So a lot of times the label is attached to its function. So we can't get away from either of those. The thing is described by what it does sometimes. Like what is its action?
Yeah. And our relevance, its relevance to us in our life and the meaning that, and then there's also the meaning that's put on top of it. You know, we had a positive experience with the thing or a negative experience with the thing or whatever.
And this is also true for language and especially in BG5 human design, that you hear Ra say a lot, like the connotation we have with a word is not what its meaning is in the hexagram or in more of the esoteric part of it when he explains it, you know. So even this whole system is, you know, soaked in 62.
Right. Yeah. Take a look at, you know, in taking a look at BG5, you know, one of the things that makes it different than human design is the language that we use. Is how we speak about things in a sense, the day-to-day terms that people can really understand, you know. And so language can really make a difference. And I've come across many people who have done a lot of studies in human design, and in taking BG5 on top of that, it's taken it in at a whole different level, because the focus really here in BG5 is the career and business aspect of it. So it really is, in a sense, that practical, material, you know, how does this work, you know, in the physical world? How can we actually apply it? And so the language does make a difference. And so I find that, you know, it's really fascinating, you know, to see how, again, it's the sharing for the human experience. And so sharing it in one language versus another language can have, you know, a different sort of connotation, or a different way that you think about it, or a different way that you perceive it, whether it's, you know, still in English, but we're using, you know, two different languages, BG5 and human design, or whether you're, you know, literally using a different language.
I have an observation. Can I share?
Yeah,
If
please.
you've ever tried to learn another language where they're teaching you, but they're like, there's no English word for what I'm trying to describe for you. It's like the way that that person is experiencing life is completely foreign to how we experience life, because we don't have even a way of describing the concept that they're maybe inherently living, because that's their belief system. If they're tribal and there's these words that we just don't have a word for it, it's mind-boggling, you know?
Yeah. I come
Like
across that a lot.
a different life, different kind of life.
Yeah, exactly. We have we actually have several instructors right now who are translating BG5 into different languages. So in Turkish, in Japanese, in Italian, in German, and you know, we actually discussed that because they were looking at different words or different terms, and you know, not having that particular word in their language. So how do you describe it, or what word could they use that at least came close? Yeah, really fascinating. Yeah, pretty mind-blowing. You know, and with BG5 too, when we take a look at the majority of the classes, literally what we are teaching, and you know, all of us can attest to that, is the details, right, of how to understand and how to read, you know, what's known as the body graph. You know, so understanding, even just looking here at trait 62, right, and you know, what does that mean, and you know, how does it play into the context of the whole? And you know, we had talked about in one of the earlier BG5 live, the was it the sum, I always forget the
whole.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Exactly. You know, so this is taking a look and, in a sense, dividing it down into the little pieces, into the little parts. You know, this is not the synthesis. Logic is not necessarily the synthesis. Logic is really getting down to, in a sense, dividing things into and really understanding the individual pieces and parts.
Into its formula.
Yeah, exactly. Into its pattern and recognizing the pattern.
Rachel is contributing, I have grown out of my shoes in French. We say our shoes are too small, so the fault is on the shoes. Oh, how funny.
That sounds like in Czech also. They have, my husband speaks Czech as well as English, and they have little phrases like that too, where it's really, it's looking at it very differently. It's a very different perspective.
Right, exactly. Interesting.
Or like how Spanish, they give it a female or a male quality, the energy of it.
Yeah.
French does that also.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting in your own life to kind of explore the details of that around you, and the language that you use, and the detail of the words that you use as well. Now, now, one of the things that this is kind of like we're still talking about the 62, but kind of shifting the topic a bit, because it's very interesting what we talked about last week and tying it into what we're talking about this week. And one of the things that's happening is we're in this huge period of transition. What once worked no longer works. And so we are right at that precipice. It's almost like we have both at the same time right now, where we're on that bridge that's crossing over, you know, from one way to another. So we've been in what's known as the era of planning. And in the era of planning, it's all about these huge institutions. And this is, you know, 62 is a part of logic. You know, and there's three aspects of logic that are in this current system. But we are moving away from that, and we're moving away from planning large organizations, you know, in a sense, giving our own personal authority over to, you know, an outer authority, meaning, you know, giving our authority over to our doctors, our government, you know, not making decisions ourselves, but we're moving into this era of the individual, where it really is important for us to really know ourselves, to understand ourselves, to really trust ourselves. And this is one of the reasons, and I share this in a lot of the programs that we have, why this information of BG5 is so important now more than ever. And I find it very interesting as we take a look at what's going on in the news, and what we've been obsessed with recently is we've been obsessed with leadership, right? We've been obsessed with politics. We've been obsessed with, you know, governments all around the world. And there's been a lot of corruption that's been being exposed as well. And so I wanted to share this with you because I thought it was kind of fascinating. What we took a look at last week is we took a look at the 53. Remember, the 53 is about beginnings. And this is actually where we're headed and where we currently are, this era of planning. If we take a look at the leader, kind of what defines the leader, again, taking a look at the detail of what defines the leader, is the 62, and it happens to be in quality 1. We're in quality 4 today, I believe. But this is in quality 1. Remember, quality 1 is always the foundation. So this is detail and this is the routine. And so when I read this, kind of think about how this could potentially lead to a lot of corruption, you know, really in our leaders in business, our leaders in government, our, you know, even in ourselves as leaders, how it can show up. So the pattern, if you will, of leadership is about detail and routine, the ability to transcend the boredom of routine through a rich and daring fantasy life, the ability to organize detail through fantasy, or rebellion and its enormous waste of energy, and the need of expression which ignores the detail. And so just kind of interesting sort of pondering that, you know, oftentimes when we take a look at, okay, what is success, right? How can I be a leader? Often people think, oh, you know, when I have the fancy house and I have the fancy car and I have, Linda wrote about this in her article that she posted. You know, she thought that what success was is having all of these trappings of success, of, you know, this sort of fantasy, if you will, of, you know, having the nice car, having the big house, having all of this. And that's really what success is. And that's what everyone's striving for. So we kind of live in this fantasy of what success is all about. And the current pattern that's happening right now is this pattern of illusion and delusion. So we make up a lot of things that really aren't true. You know, so again, ask yourself, can this lead to corruption, right? This is where, in a sense, we're working just for money. And so money becomes more important than our connection to individuals. You know, not for all of us, but for, you know, when we think of corporate business, that's what gives us kind of a ew often about corporate business, is it's not about, in a sense, the individual. It's about this corporate greed of, you know, wanting to make all this money on the in the top, you know, so that all the top people have, you know, their yachts and whatever. You know, that's kind of the picture that we have, this, you know, this illusion, delusion, and what's given, I think, capitalism sort of a bad name or a bad rap, if you will. And so it's interesting where we're moving from is this 62-1. What we're moving into is, first of all, we're moving into this pattern of wisdom. And again, in this era of the individual, is taking a look at beginnings and phases. So in a sense, beginning something new. And we've been in this 62-1 since 1961, and now it's shifting. And so this is the successful utilization of a completion of a stage in development that by its evident success and value can be used as an example to attract support for the next state. And it's the energy to attract support for beginnings based on the success of the past. So, instead of having this fantasy of what we want it to look like, it's like, okay, is this successful? If this is successful, then we can build on it from here. And so there's a whole other different approach to leadership, right? This approach to leadership of, are things successful? We're beginning something new. Have we had successes in the past? And if we've had successes in the past, how can we build on that based on the pattern of wisdom? So for me, I find this really refreshing, where we are moving from and where we're moving to, and also explains why there's so much chaos out in the world right now, right? And especially chaos within when we take a look at what the leader is all about, right? Leadership is being reworked. And if we take a look at the past, Ra had talked about this many times, that, it really is the advisor moving forward into the future that is a different type of leadership, because it's a leadership that's leading and guiding the process, not saying, do what I say. Mm-hmm. And in the era of planning, there was a lot of do what I say. I'm the authority and you need to do what I say. Right? I don't care what you want. If you want your money, if you want your paycheck, you have to do this. I don't care if you like it or not. That's what you need to do. Versus leading and guiding the process, versus how do you use your energy successful that is of value, right? So that you can move forward to the future. So I find this really refreshing in taking a look at, what the flavor of leadership is moving forward into the future. Mm-hmm. And we're in that bridge. It's a little chaotic right now, but we're moving towards something, I think, much cleaner, much healthier.
Mm. And there's something so dramatically different about a first quality leader, authoritarian, like you were mentioning, and a sixth quality, which is very much more of this high level, hands off, not so into that need to control or organize the details. We're going from logic to abstract, which is more about the experiential road, not this idea or plan of the details being organized in a specific way. It's just like, oh, well, this is messy. Let's just give it a try and let's see what comes up. And these are authentic leaders, people who are looking for that authenticity.
Yeah.
As
opposed to micromanaging, right?
Exactly.
Managing the details.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. It's interesting when you were just saying that, Lavina, too. I was thinking about in my design, because I have the 62 and the 53, when we're in class, sometimes people will get really stuck on the details and they're like, well, is it like this or is it like this? And I could feel their little heads furrow, their brows furrowing. And for me, what happens is that in that moment, I start to see it like a big picture, and the details move away, and I can see the essence of it and pull in the essence and say it like, okay, so based on what you're saying, yes, this you do understand this piece of it. What, the foundation, right? That the 53, that is, yes, we have success right here. You get this piece. Here's how to get the gist and the essence of it, how it feels, instead of, trying to get it right. And you were talking a lot about this, or we were talking about this yesterday in the OC16, about moving from this logical, like everything has to be laid out, to this place of how does it feel? What are we, everybody is contributing their own authority, their own awareness. And instead of just trying to logically lay it all out and get it right, it's about how does it feel? Where are we moving? What is it? What's working? What's not working? How can you take logic and make it corrupt? And all of those things. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I love, just kind of taking a look at the 1 and the 6 as well. The 6th quality is about the leader, but it's the, like you said, Lavina, the authentic leader, the role model, you know, and it's living by example, you know, leading and guiding from a big picture versus, you know, focused and micromanaging the details. Very different type of leader.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some ads from additional comments from Lisa, if I could read. She
Yes,
says,
please.
and having an individual goal for success that is related to success in the world versus success in terms of my personal material presentation of the world, that the success builds on more success for the company world versus my next personal material goals.
Yeah, very beautifully said.
You know, it's interesting too. I love that distinction between, right, the personal success and the larger success. But something just popped into my head also as we're looking at this. So 2 weeks ago we had a solar eclipse, and then today we're having a lunar eclipse. And one of the things that we're seeing sort of in the larger context of things and things moving from the logic to the feeling is really the masculine and the feminine. You know, if we were to take that right, yeah, here in this real, yes, here we go, really a big picture view. And where we are truly moving is from that logical, and not that logic is bad. I mean, logic is how we make sense. It's the building blocks of our universe. Just like you said, it is the periodic table, the elements that bring everything together. But without feeling, without the feminine, without that side that says, well, how does this all fit in the whole? And what does it really mean? And how are we really using this? And I say this not, you know, to say that the feminine isn't, right, just, you know, there isn't issues there too, right? Everybody gets that, I assume. So it's really looking at how we are moving from that masculine sort of logical, everything do authoritarian, to what's the best way to guide this? What's the best way to energetically do that? And what worked in the past? And we do need logic. And we do need to build on those strong foundations. We need logic to kind of in some ways hold us together.
Yeah.
But we also need to bring in something else. So
yeah, exactly. You know, and I think I don't know what this means, if it means anything, but I found it really fascinating that we had a couple of weeks ago, we had the solar eclipse.
mm-hmm.
And, you know, that happened on today when we were doing our BG5 live, and now we have the full moon, we have the lunar eclipse. And again, sort of, but it's in a sense, it's that balance between the masculine and feminine. And I think what's happened is that it's gotten out of balance.
Yeah.
You know, and even the feminine has acted more masculine.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's in a sense allowing the masculine to be masculine, but also allowing the feminine to be feminine. Because if you take a look, everything is a binary. We take a look at this in BG5, everything is a binary. And if everything is all on one side or the other side, it's out of balance. It doesn't work. And how beautiful the symmetry is in that balance. Yes, Lavina.
I am astounded by looking at the mandala right now, because what I'm seeing is that there's an abstract gate and then a logic gate, and then a logic gate and an abstract gate, and then a logic gate and then an abstract gate, and then a logic gate and then an abstract gate, and then an individual logic, individual, tribal. I mean, it goes on like that, where there's this interweaving of the abstract and the logic that I just never saw before. And we're right in that, because we, you know, today is 62. We were in 53 last week before. And then next week we're going into 56. So that's another abstract. And then we're going to go to logic, and then we're going to abstract, and then logic. It's just fascinating how it's like the double helix, you know, it's weaving things
right in. And it's almost like it's like everything's been kind of out of balance and out of tune and out of, you know, even in our own designs, one of the things we take a look at is, you know, where we're in tune and where we're out of tune. Everything's been out of tune, and it's almost like balance is being restored. Something is being healed and restored and brought back. You know, if we take a look at the full moon, because we have a full moon is about completion. And, you know, then we have the lunar eclipse. So we have the shadow of the earth falls across the moon. You know, we had the shadow of the moon, you know, come in between the, you know, the earth and the sun when we took a look at the solar eclipse. So the eclipse brings change, and it also ushers in evolution. And I think we're right. And again, in this transition between the era of planning and the era of the individual, another word for the era of the individual is the phoenix rising. Kind of out of the ashes of the old, something new is able to arise. You know, so it also completes an emotional cycle and allows us to let go of that which no longer serves us. So again, if we're, again, taking a look at new beginnings, starting something new, you know, kind of getting to the foundational detail of that and looking at the details of the past and letting go of that which no longer serves us so that we can, in a sense, move forward unencumbered and in a different way with a different paradigm moving forward into the future.
I think it's really interesting too that this is all, it's all about in the shadow. And so when we're looking at our profit potential workshops, when we're looking at profit potential coaching, when we're looking at BG5, when we're looking at partnership analysis, team analysis, you know, our personal design, and when we're looking at a team or organizational design, we're also, a big piece of that is the shadow and where we are in a healthy state or unhealthy state of our design. And so these eclipses are sort of amplifications that allow us to see the shadow and release it in a more powerful way. And
to learn the wisdom behind the shadow.
To tap into the wisdom of it. And so for those of you who are listening today, or even just, you know, listening in the future, looking at what are you learning about right now? What's happening in your world right now? Where is shadow coming up? In what function is it coming up? And if you're in a team, where is it kind of showing up? Is it in the details? Is it in the stories that you're telling yourselves or you're telling other people? Just noticing some of those things could be a powerful practice right now.
Yeah. Wow.
And this season of our cycle of life, summertime, is all about form. So what's actually present in your reality, not just, you know, the ideas about it, what's physically, tangibly presenting itself to you to contemplate.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Anything, Natalie, that you wanted to add? Just soaking it all in.
Yeah. Yeah, not really.
Well, let's actually kind of backtrack here and just take a look for a moment at just kind of exploring this trait 62 in a little bit more detail as well. You know, so this is where we are today, is this quality 4. Remember, quality 4 is the influencer, and this is asceticism. So, you know, how things look. And so one of the things that we've been talking about over the last few weeks too is this, in a sense, when there is this transition, when there is this change, this sort of need to kind of withdraw. And also in taking a look at the wisdom, everything that we were just talking about, it's this time to kind of sit back and to contemplate so that we can get what the wisdom is on the other side. So this is the perfected ascetic withdrawal in the pursuit of harmony and simplicity, where outside dangers do not exist, and there is time to pursue the inner meaning in detail. So it's kind of interesting that this is, in a sense, what both of this full moon and this eclipse is all about. You know, this ability to kind of withdraw without having to worry about, you know, outside dangers, so that you can simply kind of take a look at the inner meaning and the detail of all of the inner meaning that's there. The wisdom, just like we were talking about. It's the detail that can only be expressed after periods of isolation and reflection. Meaning that, you know, this is part of, you know, being able to, and it's interesting how it's kind of, this quality 4 is also sort of tied to that experiential way as well, even though it's over on the logical side, right? It's having this ability to, in a sense, look inward, to have this isolation, to understand the shadows beyond the surface. And this is where the detail is organized, where the detail is organized, isolation as a strategy, waiting for the right opportunity for expression. So it's interesting, you know, what we're going to be moving into, you know, in the next few weeks. We still have a few weeks yet, is moving from what Lavina was talking about with this form, you know, moving into bonding, you know, moving into connecting. And it's interesting that before we move into connecting, we're in a sense in the process of wrapping up what it is, in a sense, to be, you know, to be in form, understanding, you know, in a sense, the form principle of, you know, what we are, so that then, you know, in the next phase, we can take a look at what it is to connect and bond with others.
Wow. That explains my whole life. Cool. It really does. I'm just like, wow, that is, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see the genetic continuity between our quality force, because we've gone through quite a few of these now, to see that there needs to be that pullback before they can have that right externalization of their process, or the influence come out, that there has to be that energy that it's not always there and on all the time. So it helps us understand people who have this quality as part of their public role.
Yeah. You know, this need in a sense for aloneness, because it's only through aloneness and being able to kind of put together all of the pieces, being able to put together all the details, that when the right time is there for expression, that's when you can really have influence.
Yeah, timing for them to have
Yeah.
that whole process.
And again, it's about this balance too, because this is the influencer. So you would think that, oh, they're always out there, they're always friendly, they're always connecting. Right. There is an element of that, but there has to be balance. And that's what I think that's, you know, kind of part of the theme here today too, is that balance between, you know, the masculine and the feminine, that balance between, you know, being out there and being of influence. You know, we've been talking about the leader too, being of influence. But the only way that influence in a sense can be pure is if you've taken that time, you know, to really pursue that inner meaning in detail.
And pull in another aspect of trait 62, this is a voice that it says, I think. So everybody might be noticing this week that a lot of people are saying, I think, and this is the future, and this is what is going to happen or should happen, or this is the logical structure of what I want to see happen. So I think. And we need to remember that the process of externalizing what we think needs to be something that the other person is asking for or ready for.
Right.
Sometimes they're not ready for it if they're not asking for it.
Right. And you can't have influence, right, if you're trying to get something out there and they're not ready for it.
Or if you haven't taken the time to get quiet. And, you know, it's interesting you say that, because I've been thinking about writing an article around this. And even today it was like, oh, I had a little bit of time this morning, and it was like, okay, right. And I went, no, I felt this, I need to withdraw. I need to be in meditation today. I need to get quiet and not be out in the world yet. The article is not ready yet. I'm still percolating on it. And so that's what I mean. Like, it's perfect. And so coming back to decision-making strategy is sometimes when you feel like, oh, well, I have to get this out, like because you have an arbitrary deadline, or, you know, oh, my newsletter goes out at this time, and so I have to get it done. But you're feeling like, you know, well, I'm not ready to. A lot of people make themselves wrong for that. And this is a beautiful invitation to look at that and say, look, if it's not flowing, there's a really good reason for that. And mechanically speaking, you need to take that inward time and let it process. And then it will come. It will come, and, you know, it'll be great. But we have a lot of constructs, logical constructs that we have made up about marketing, about what it means to communicate. When companies create products and they're launching and they've got all these, we're going to make this happen and we've got a deadline. Well, what they forget is that every deadline was created by them. It's
Right.
all made up. Everything's made up. So if that's the case, then why not work with the energies that are already, and you can keep making stuff up, but just work with it instead of trying to whatever, you know what I mean?
Force it, no forcing.
Force
Right.
it, thank you.
Yeah.
It looks like, sounds like, anyway.
Yeah.
That's a fabulous point. Really fabulous point.
Yeah, exactly.
Ties back to the previous slide on the leadership that's shifting. And the era we're in and where we're going.
Say a little bit more about that.
No, exactly what Chris now was sharing on. We actually make up our own deadlines and when things need to happen. So that's the detail planning and the era of planning and the details and having the schedule or whatever is behind it, instead of being this individual leader and going with the flow of the energy of when things appear and happen, or when an individual is there to contribute the talent, or yeah, really, really good point. So it's very interesting, again, how all of this really just ties together. And and again, that being in the full moon and the lunar eclipse, I think it's happening. Is it happening now?
I saw the notification pop up on my body graph, so I was trying to find the time. I haven't found it yet, but it's happening. It's in the same quality right now.
Wow. Very cool. All right. Well, are there any other questions, Effie? Any other comments? Anything that is there to wrap things up?
Big shout out to the people on Facebook that are watching. I see we have quite a crowd today. Also, Rachel is sharing from before about that when Chris, you were talking about the shift from masculine to feminine. She says, I see a difference in dependency and real partnership that shows more and more too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. Again, bringing back that balance. And the thing is, it's not necessarily, in a sense, okay, we've been in the masculine, now we have to shift all the way to the feminine. It's not that. It's in a sense this equilibrium where it's both sides are honored, where there is a balance between, where things are not out of balance, that things are in congruent, or are congruent, and flowing. And that's part of really understanding our designs too, is that when we understand our design, instead of trying to push and force and make things happen, we realize that when we follow our decision-making strategy, things naturally happen. Right? So if you want to know a little bit more about your own career design, if you're new to BG5, you can get a free report to learn about your own unique career design, and also learn how you're designed to make decisions as well. So you can visit our website at bg5businessinstitute.com. And we also have new classes that are coming up. So you can attend the first class for free. So we have the BG5 Foundation Course. Both Lavina and Natalie will be teaching the BG5 Foundation Course coming up in September, one on Thursday, one on Friday. So you can pick the day and time that works best for you. Also, Natalie's going to be starting a BG5 certification course. So if you have the BG5 Foundation or the Human Design Foundation courses, you can start in the BG5 certification course. And this is about really utilizing this material and working with clients around their career, around their business, and around their life. We also have the Profit Potential Workshops, and Chris is going to start with the next round of the Profit Potential Workshops. So she's going to be doing Drive and Stamina coming up in September, and so you can check that out as well. So we invite you to start to get prepared and start to get excited about the new classes that are going to be coming up in September. All right. So with that, let's wrap up today's BG5 Live, and any last words from each of our panels. And we'll take a few words from each of our panel, and then we'll wrap up for today. So so Natalie, any last thoughts? Any last words?
Yeah, so I had a client this morning, and it's so interesting that it's quality 4 today. And this specific one with withdrawal and then, you know, you're in a meeting, and I could sense so much the growth I've gone through myself, and now being in such an inner calm through being able to pursue this inner meaning in detail in BG5, but and I saw she was looking for the meaning outside of her. So if I can make other people happy, then I am happy, or quote unquote. And so this is really interesting that this was the whole conversation. Start to, you know, go inward. So yeah, that's the energy of today. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Natalie. How about for you, Chris?
Yeah, today is just, it's been very similar, Natalie, and just doing that inquiry. And I know we're with the Profit Potential workshops, where you have workbooks that we're working with too, and that internal inquiry around how we're working in a healthy state and an unhealthy state. And so that's what I did this morning, was really sit with that and look at the patterns, and it's really amazing. And so this information, and just watching every week that we do this, and you say, well, this is the trait and this is what it's like, oh my God, it is, it's happening. You know, our design does us. And the more and the sooner we kind of get that and start to work with it instead of over it or against it or forcing it, oh God, there's so much magic there. So much magic. It's amazing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
And how about for you, Lavina?
Oh, I just had to geek out a little bit and take a look at the actual cycles of what's going on right now. And remember, we're looking at the core of what today carries as a quality. But if we look to the opposite side of where it's being grounded in our reality, it's just what Chris and Natalie mentioned, which is about the internal truth, the mystery of wanting the pressure to know the fundamental principles. And it's not just that we're grounding it there, but we also have, there's a couple of different qualities here. The
super geek.
It's the truth and transformation. So that's where we're having our grounding, our core drive and what is it? Driving? No, not driving.
Driving force.
Driving force. Thank you. And then our truth. So this is a really important day to go inward and to contemplate, right? To take some time out from external reality. And we know that it's Mercury retrograde. So taking some time with ourselves and going inward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we want to be of influence, right? If, you know, all of us are leaders in our own way, in our own world, and moving away from that leadership of illusion and delusion, moving towards, in a sense, being a role model, you know, taking a look at the successes of the past and being able to, you know, in a sense, just like what Lavina just said, turn inward, you know, take a look at what are those details, you know, how do I show up as a leader in the world? You know, do I have this fantasy about what it is, or is it really, you know, based in this wisdom? So, so we'll leave it at that. So again, you know, take that time to turn inward. Yeah. Any last comments from our Zoom room or Facebook?
No, I don't think.
Special shout out to Rob, who joined us right at the beginning, and we have a whole bunch of people sharing on Facebook. So thanks for being here, guys. Please feel free to comment below if you have any questions or if you need anything. We're here for you.
Yeah. All right.
For sure.
Well, enjoy your contemplation on the details and looking inward. And we'll see you all next week. Enjoy the eclipse.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.